Bethany Manctalo here. Welcome to our Millwall fan show with some new voices, but the same focus. Just everything Millwall. Enjoy!
Welcome to the 2023-24 series of Millwall's No One Likes Us Talkings, our Millwall fan show. I'm your host, Myles Thornton, and with me I have the No One Likes Us Talking team of Jeff Burnige, Ted Robinson, and Eamonn Barclay.
Not everybody likes them, but they don't care.
Yesterday it was announced that former Lion Charlie Hurley had passed away, aged 87. To a generation of Millwall supporters, Charlie was the greatest player to don a Millwall shirt. Jeff, what would you like to add to that?
Well, it was my first hero. But sadly, I'm not 80, I'm 76, but I was a very small boy when he was playing for us. He left, I think it was during the season, 67, something like that. So I would have been 10 when he left. But a big hero of mine. But if he was a hero at Millwall, God, he was a god at Sunderland. They voted him their best player ever. They named their training ground after him. And there was one emotional occasion that I can recall in 1973 when he was the manager of Reading. He was there for quite a while. He was quite a good manager. And they drew Sunderland away in the FA Cup and he went back. And as he came out of the dugout to take his place, the entire stadium was on their feet, applauding him and chanting his name. Brilliant it was. Absolutely brilliant. He told me about it when I met him in 2012 at the launch of his autobiography. Something that is well worth reading. It's a good one. It's a really good one. But yeah, Charlie was sold at 20. Can you believe it? In those days, they came in virtually straight from school. He left school to join Ford's. Bill Voice, he persuaded Charlie to sign at 16, and he made his debut soon after his 17th birthday, and he was an amazing player. Please, anyone listening, please look him up on Wikipedia. Fascinating guy, great career, great Millwall player. There's a very good quiz question locked away in Charlie Hurley's career to do with playing European football. That's one for the future. Sadly, in those days, Millwall were a bit of a selling club. It wasn't a big surprise when he was sold, aged 20. My first hero, R.I.P. the great, great Charlie Hurley.
Rest in peace, Charlie Hurley. I must mention as well the award presented to former Lion Tony Craig last week. He won Macron Player of the Year for his services to Dorking Wanderers. So if you're listening, Tony, congratulations, mate.
Here. He was a great servant to Millwall. I love Tony Craig as well. Yeah, brilliant.
We managed to beat the Black Cats on Saturday afternoon, 1-0 away from home thanks to a Duncan Watmore goal. That's now 3 goals from 4 games for him and a third straight win for Millwall. Jeff, how would you sum up the afternoon in the North East?
It was his goal. I've stopped it and it's not an own goal.
Good.
It's his goal and, of course, ironic against his former club where he was popular but beset by injuries. If we get lucky late in his career, he may have an injury-free period because he's not on loan, he's our player. Wonderful goal, wonderful cross on the run by Ryan Longman. Chopper pointed out in an interview, didn't he, this week, what a good crosser on the run Ryan Longman is. When you can cross in full stride rather than put that short stride in to hook your foot round. Brilliant cross, brilliant goal, great result. I've got to admit I wasn't there. I've done my dues, I think, going up that far. Wonderful outcome, and I know people that were at the game and they said everybody enjoyed it, even though it wasn't a spectacle. They really, really enjoyed it. So well done, everyone involved.
Yep. Ted, what did you make of it?
Well, thank you, Jeff, because I was one of them people up there, and I must admit, it's a strange old thing when you hear people talking about the game afterwards, and they were saying, it weren't much of a game that. To me, it felt like the best game of the season because we won, and it meant that we stayed up. Completely carried away with the result, I've got to be honest. Forgot all about what the performance was really like, which it was a pretty dire game all round. But the fact of the matter is they went out there and they done what we all wanted them to do, which was make sure we were secure in the Championship for another season after with 2 games left. We're not having to worry about coming to the last home game of the season against Plymouth with any worries on our shoulders about looking at other scores and things like that. So, it was. It's a wonderful place, Sunderland, by the way. One of my favourite ones to go to, Jeff, I must admit.
Yes, it's great. It's a great stadium.
I had the great pleasure of meeting Ian Gillan after the game, a friend of ours on the show, been on here. Spoken to him many occasions, never met him. But thank you, Ian, if you're listening, for taking me out onto the town on Saturday evening. Yeah, it wasn't the greatest performance in the world, but it was a battling performance and a performance that was worthy of Neil and the team for what they've been doing in the last few weeks, certainly the last week since the Huddersfield, I won't say fiasco, but when we felt down and thought like we was in trouble. They battled back. He's come away with 3 straight wins there, and thankfully I can go along to Plymouth on Saturday and just enjoy the game.
Ted, I've got to ask you a question as someone that was there. It was a game that Billy Mitchell missed, and Casper De Norre played from the start. How did you think he did?
Casper De Norre on the day, I don't think he had his greatest game. He played like a player that was a little bit rusty, for want of a better way of putting it. And he's a different player to Billy. Billy Mitchell's all running around and putting his foot in and getting there, and whereas Casper's a little bit more with the ball at his feet and looking for his passes. And if his passes don't get there, then it doesn't look like he's having the greatest of games, if you know what I mean. But don't get me wrong, put a shift in. And I'm sure there's a very good player in there in Casper De Norre. And I, for one, look forward to seeing a lot more of him next season.
Eamonn, did you enjoy the game?
I did enjoy the game, being in a foreign field and being able to watch it on TVs. It was good to watch.
I hope you paid for that.
On Millwall TV? Yes, of course.
Right, okay. It wasn't a fancy one.
And it is the best place to get it from. You get a great commentary from Max McLennan and Carl Bates. If you're in a foreign field, clock on there and pay for it. Beyond the expenses of watching it in a foreign field, 2 points. I was very disappointed in one player that played for us and played for them. I thought Ballard was very much off the game, and he didn't offer the sort of quality that he offered when he played for us. And it was, for me, a very disappointing performance by him. The other person he should have gone.
And he should have been sent off.
Yeah, he was being hassled, though. He just couldn't cope with it. The other guy who was an embarrassment for me was Jack Clark. This is Jack Clark who scores goal for fun against us. And Ryan Leonard, whichever way you look at it, took him out of that game totally. Or was he switched off because he's got the ump and he wants to go? I don't know. But Jack Clark was a disappointment. The rest I'll say is history, and old Saville marshalled well in midfield. Thanks.
Thank you, Eamonn.
Jack Clark's leaving, I'll have him.
I think it was a good win, as you said, Ted. You know, it wasn't the greatest performance, but actually not many of the wins we've had under Harris this season have been unbelievable performances, to be fair. So, yeah, delighted to get the win and obviously keep us up in the Championship for next season. I think if we did go, I know we spoke about this before, but if we did go down, it just would have been horrible. We probably wouldn't have come back up either straight away. It probably would have been a Bolton or a Portsmouth situation where we're down there for a good few years before we come up, and financially that do you in, you know, that really would. So good to get the win and keep us up next season and push on now. We'll take a break there and hear about our sponsors, G&M Motors.
Hi, this is Jess Tuffield from G&M Motors. Operating from a modern and purpose-built facility in Milton Road, Gravesend, G&M Motors offers a complete range of new Honda cars and services. As well as new Hondas, we have an extensive range of used cars, including ex-Motability cars from a variety of manufacturers. Specialising in new Honda cars, G&M Motors has been retailing quality new and used vehicles to the people of Kent and South East London for over 4 decades. We have been a Honda dealership since 1972 and are the country's longest serving supplier of this renowned marque. Conveniently sited just 2 miles from the A2, 10 miles from the M25 and Dartford Crossing, visitors to our showroom are assured a warm welcome from our experienced and friendly staff. Our facilities include an on-site workshop capable of providing full vehicle servicing and repairs, as well as an extensive parts department offering genuine Honda parts and accessories. The expertise of our skilled mechanics is not limited to just Hondas. that extends to most makes and models of motor vehicles. Whatever your motoring needs, visit us at G&M Motors today. The newly extended hours of our G&M headquarters means that you can contact us from 8 a.m. till 6 p.m. on weekdays and 9 a.m. till 6 p.m. on Saturdays. To contact us, call us today on 01474 365 026.
Thank you, Jess. Debbie Julian's here. Don't forget to call Jess on 01474 365 026. G&M Motors have been dear friends of the Julians family for over 4 decades now, from my dad Lenny to me, Debbie, Lions together.
I'm your host, Myles Thornton, and with me over the NOLUT talking team of Jeff Burnige, Ted Robinson and Eamonn Barclay. Many thanks to our sponsor, G&M Motors. Why not go along, check the Hondas out and see what else they have on site at Gravesend. Our guest of the evening is a former footballer who says he's notched a few, blazed wide a lot, now pundit, co-commentator for EFL highlights on ITV Football, BBC London Sport, What the EFL podcast, TalkSport and Chelsea TV. Throughout his career, he has played as a forward for Chelsea, Millwall, Wycombe, Oldham Athletic, Northampton Town, Swindon Town, Ipswich, Luton, Leyton Orient, Walsall, St Johnstone, Queen of the South, St Mirren and Exeter City in League Two, where he hung up his boots in 2014. And lest we forget, he gained a Scottish cap. Let's welcome to the show, Sam Parkin. Hello, Sam, you right?
Evening, fellas. How you doing?
Evening, Sam.
Evening, Sam. Evening.
Sam, great to have you on the show. Before I hand you over to the panel, you must be close to being a record loanee scorer. Darren Huckabee scored 3 goals from 6 starts for us, but you scored 4 at Millwall from 5 starts and 2 from the bench between the 12th of September, and obviously the loan ended on the 17th of October. It was brief, but it was an impressionable loan to us from Chelsea. What was the background story to this one, Sam?
Yeah, there is a stat, isn't there? I think kind of goals per game. Not that I should qualify, given that I only played a handful of games, but yeah, it was a great start to my professional career, really. Given that I played in the youth setup and the reserve team at Chelsea for a few years prior to that. I think I was at a stage, probably, chaps, where I was ready to go out and start playing, and there was various clubs interested. And I just remember probably the reserve manager approaching me at the training ground and saying, Millwall quite fancy you taking you. And I grew up in Barnes, and their School of Excellence was in Sheen, if any of you guys know the area. So I was constantly linked with Millwall as a kid through Mick Beard. I'm sure you guys know the name. Obviously, his son played for the club, and Mick was associated for many years. So I knew Mick for years growing up, and he was always trying to get me there. But I suppose the lure of Chelsea was quite difficult to turn down. So when they showed an interest, it felt quite like a natural fit, really. So I was happy to do it. It was obviously Keith Stevens and McCleary. Sorry if I get some of the names wrong. It's a while ago now, but those two signed me. Didn't give me a game. I probably didn't train particularly well. I was quite nervous, probably being in that first team environment, given I was only 19, stepping over. And it was after they were sacked. It was Ray Harford, obviously, and Steve Gritt, I think, were in temporary charge and just chucked me in. And I didn't expect to be thrown in, but obviously played that game against Oxford, scored a couple, and went and had a really good month. So that was kind of the background to me joining it. I think it was probably Mick's doing, if truth be told. He was probably the one that was still aware of my progress, and that's probably how I ended up having my first loan at the Den.
Right.
Yeah. Evening, Sam. It's Jeff Burnige here. Lovely to speak to you.
Hi, Jeff.
I'm glad you mentioned Mick Beard. I mean, his passing was 2 years ago now, and he was a big friend of mine, a big influence on the youth development programme at Millwall in the years he was with the club. And yes, you're quite right, Sam. He was always telling me that we should get you. But you played for a team called Barnes Eagles. We had a centre of excellence at Sheen, just outside Richmond, at Sheen School. And it was Stephen Reed was in the team. We hoped we'd sign you from Barnes Eagles, but didn't prove to be the case. And when you went to Chelsea, Mick and I were a bit disappointed. So we were excited when you signed. I can't remember how it was, whether it was Mick telling Rhino and Macca, but why did you actually leave after a month? What happened there to cause the loan to come to an end?
With hindsight, I wouldn't have done that. now I'm older and wiser. That said, I went and experienced that brilliant cup run at Wycombe Wanderers that year. That coincided with obviously Millwall winning the title that first season that I was playing first team football. So I had some brilliant highs even after leaving Millwall that year. But in truth, I think I'd fallen down the pecking order under Mark McGee, who obviously came in and we were blessed at that time, as you'll remember. There was Paul Moody, who was great. Sadly, he had that kind of purple patch, didn't he, for a couple of years. He'd obviously done well prior to me being at the club, and probably naturally he was going to partner Neil Harris at times. So you had those three and myself. Paul Eiffel could probably play out there as well, gunning for two spots really. And I suppose when you gain experience and become a little bit wiser when you get older, I realised, and I would have realised, that it was a pretty good place to be that year because it was a phenomenally talented side and I really enjoyed it. But the truth was, I probably felt a little hard done by Mark McGee, that he didn't pick me more regularly, and I felt I should have been getting more minutes. And having scored those goals, there was quite a few options to go and play more regularly. So that was all it was based on, but it was probably a little bit of immaturity because I would have liked to have stuck around, and even if it was from the bench, invariably I would have had a title medal and I would have had the opportunity to play with what was a brilliant side. You know, some of the guys in that side went on to become, you know, top level Premier League players for years and years and years. And I'm glad you mentioned Reedy because me and Steve are still close. Obviously, I grew up in Barnes. Reedy's a Kingston boy who played against each other at school. It was natural that me and him would become friends when I joined at 19 or whatever we were. And we're still in touch today and have got a really strong relationship. So, yeah, that was a really nice thing to come out of it. And, yeah, I've got a relationship with a lot of the lads, even though it was such a brief spell, been able to maintain contact with a lot of them.
That was an amazing team. It's one of those things in the history of a middle-sized football club, which, let's face it, Millwall are. If you get a team that good, you need to get in the top division with that team because a lot of the players in that team played in the Premier League, but Millwall didn't. And there's a knack to keeping a team together and long enough to get there. The team was good enough to get to the FA Cup final a couple of years later, but it did break up after that. It's a shame. But your time at Wycombe was memorable. Was that the year they got to the semi-final of the FA Cup?
It was, yeah. Hindered by injury a little bit. So it's kind of bittersweet for me because I scored in the fourth round, you know, a really important goal to beat Wolves, and then played in the games against Wimbledon, who are then Premier League team as well. And we beat them after a replay. And then the game against Leicester, I had a back injury. So I was back at Chelsea receiving treatment. And that's the famous game where the bloke was signed off teletext. It was that long ago because Laurie Sanchez had to find someone who wasn't cup tied. And he went on and scored the winning goal in the quarter-final and obviously got all the headlines, and they went on to play Liverpool at Villa Park. So unfortunately, I missed the quarter-final and the semi-final. So it was an amazing experience, you know, 19 years old, second loan, first season playing, and the goal against Wolves meant I was on the back of every national newspaper. Probably my favourite goal, maybe even now at the end of my career. So
you're probably thinking that should have been me with all that publicity for that lad. Can't even remember his name. Can you remember his name, that signing?
Yeah, Roy Essendon.
That's it, yeah.
And I think I'm right in saying it's the only goal he ever scored for a professional side. You know, he scored a lot, I think, you know, conference, National League, whatever you call it, and further down. But I think that's the only goal he got, you know, for a professional side. But it was an amazing goal. But you know, I couldn't enjoy it because, you know, I remember my girlfriend at the time lived up in Manchester and we were out somewhere and I couldn't even really check the score because it hurt so much not to be involved. And again, it was a season of, it was an emotional roller coaster that year because if you remember, I played for Oldham at Millwall, final day of the season in the 5-0 when Reedy scored the unbelievable goal. I'm playing for Oldham. And obviously, with respect, I mean, there's some good lads at Oldham. Andy Ritchie was the manager, John Sheridan in the midfield, and I really enjoyed it up there. And it was just a way to get out of Chelsea. I was kind of trapped there the back end of that season, just needed to get out and play a few more games. And I'm at the Den title celebrations, really smashing one in from 30 yards. And I'm thinking, what on earth have the decisions I've made this season, I should have been a part of this. So it was, I remember the kit man gave me a few shirts and all that, but I'm still waiting for my title medal, although I don't think I qualified just.
Well, I heard you did the lap of honour. Is that wrong?
No, I think someone gave me a bit of stick out the way out of the den. You won't be surprised to hear that. But obviously, I was still affiliated to Chelsea at that time.
I said, sorry about that, but I meant to give you that stick at the time.
I couldn't believe it. I was still a bit wet behind the ears. I'd expect it now that I've played and experienced the atmosphere as a supporter, as a pundit at the Den. But it was a weird experience, and like I said, I probably felt a little bit. Yeah, I felt a bit gutted, really. Pleased for Reedy and the club and for me to be a real small part of it. But it was a bit annoying that I was turning out for the opposition on that final day.
Yeah, evening, Sam. It's Ted here, mate.
Hi, Ted.
I was absolutely gutted when you didn't sign for us, or we didn't make more of an effort to sign you, because there's not many loanees that have made such an impression upon me. I'll only give you one that impressed me more, and that was Harry Kane. So
I've just been watching Tim Sherwood talking about him. You should watch it on the Under the Cosh podcast. He does a good segment on the Millwall loan.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I think Mill's a fantastic ground for a young 19-year-old to come and become a man, as Harry said he did here. But I didn't think you was far behind him, Sam, and I mean that quite genuinely. I thought you was a real prospect at the time, and we perhaps should have made a bit more effort. Yeah, but you're sort of explaining yourself a little bit, Sam, because in 2001, 2001, you was a bit loaned here and there and everywhere, weren't you? You were Wickham and Oldham and Northampton. I mean, how does that make you feel as a young lad? Did you feel like that you hadn't quite settled, obviously? And upon reflection on how it was for you, and do you think loan arrangements are an important part of football? I think they've become more important to a certain extent. But what do you reckon, Sam?
Yeah, well, I'm a product of that kind of cycle, aren't I? I suppose the early few, you're hoping that you're going to go back into the fold at Chelsea. And, it's my situation at Chelsea, very individual. I arrived there, Jeff will know this, the nucleus of the first team squad, maybe that's a bit strong. Half the first team squad was homegrown players. When I joined them as a schoolboy, Michael Dewberry, Eddie Newton, Mark Nichols, Paul Hughes, Jody Morris. I could go on and on. So many homegrown players, guys like Dave Lee, Gareth Hall. Those were the type of chaps that were in the squad when I first kind of signed form. So Chelsea was one of the best clubs at giving young players an opportunity. It just so happened that the year I signed, Ruud Gullit takes over. First signing Zola, you got the opportunity to bring in the best young forward players probably in the world, whereas before they were probably looking for the best young players in Greater London. So it was just the way it happened for me. But after the first year, I think I scored 10 goals in that first year, which is not a bad return for someone playing his first few games, and I probably felt that I had an opportunity. And then I suppose one of the fallbacks when you're young and you're a bit naive is you probably listen to agents a little bit too much rather than doing what I actually wanted to do. I would have stayed probably at Millwall that year. I probably would have signed for Wickham permanently, and kind of agents probably have a huge sway on you probably at that stage. So the Northampton move it didn't feel right probably before. I think it was probably a deal that suited both Chelsea and Northampton. It was Kevin Wilson, ex-Chelsea player, who was the manager there, and I went with another lad as well. And I just lost my way a little bit that year. And you do become a little bit stale when you have that loan after loan after loan. And Harry Kane got the opportunity, didn't he, after his, to go back to Tottenham and grow with the first team and train with them and get his opportunities. But my situation was different, and it transpired that I had to leave the following summer. But absolutely, I don't think loads has changed. I think there's probably that larger gap now from maybe 17 turning pro. Some lads stick around at academies until they're 2021, which is no good for anyone. You've got to get out and go and play games, unless you're like the real standout who can maybe stay within the club and progress to training with the first team. I suppose I'm talking someone like Phil Foden here. who got his opportunities in time, but that's a real rarity. So I don't think much has changed apart from, it was kind of 16 to 18. You stayed in house. You got your first loan when you were 18. Now they keep you around a little bit longer around the academy. It hinders a little bit more than helps, I suppose.
Great stuff. Sam, Eamonn here. Great to speak with you. You became a most feared striker when League One Swindon picked you up and you scored 67 goals in 124 appearances. That wasn't a bad change of direction and got you on the track of putting balls in the back of the net and not missing as many.
Yeah.
But aside from that, you then earned a move to Championship Ipswich. And this is when I remember Ted being in tears because he threw that stick at you that time. But the time you turned up at the Den and scored the second goal for us to lose 2-1, destroyed him. He was in bits. What was it like returning to SE16, scoring that winning goal? Can you remember much about it?
Yeah, I can, because I'd had 15 stitches in my forehead in a training ground incident the Friday before, so 8 days before, and I'd missed. We played Sheffield Wednesday at home, which I'd missed. Someone kicked me in the face during training, and so I was wrapped up Terry Butcher style, if you remember, or I certainly had a plaster on my forehead for that game. So I was a little bit deterred from heading it, if truth be told, ironically, because the goal come from a header. I think it was Marsh in goal, wasn't it? Andy Marshall in goal,
yes,
if memory serves me right. But yeah, I played up front by myself that day, and I think I had quite a good game. It was a bit of a rarity during that era to play up by yourself, but Joe Royal was doing that from time to time. And yeah, I played well for Ipswich in some away games. I just had a bit of a stinker at home at Portman Road, so never really endeared myself to the supporters. But that one was a good day. Darren Curry had amazing delivery. I'm sure you guys have seen him play for various different clubs, so he stuck one on my head. Yeah, always nice to score, and it was really important for me at the time because, moving from a relatively small pond, being a big fish, however, at Swindon, but going to a huge club like Ipswich was a jump. 10, maybe going from 7,000 people watching me at Swindon, give or take, to 25,000 people at Portman Road. So it was a bit of a step. I struggled with it probably. So that goal, along with a couple of others, were quite sweet that early part of the season.
I can imagine so.
I see. He should have stayed with us, Eamonn. He knew where the goal was down the Den. I must admit, I do remember that goal as well for Ipswich. And I did let out a few expletives, I must admit. But
so did I. But there you are. That's part of football. Sam, I know you're quite a regular visitor to the Den in your journalistic capacity.
Yeah.
Have you seen much of the team this season?
I was at the Leicester game, which was a good one, obviously. I've probably done...
It's a chat with you, isn't it, Sam? Was it the Leicester game?
Yes, Leicester game, yeah. And I've done a couple of others as well. I saw one of Joe's games. Obviously, I knew Joe from Chelsea. Been quite fortunate since I packed in one of the first calls with someone at Chelsea TV, so I've been in there doing a lot, and therefore I covered a lot of Joe Edwards' 18s and 23, so I developed a decent relationship with him, spoke to him a few times, before games. I didn't get the opportunity to speak to him during his tenure at Millwall, but yeah, I was excited for him, but obviously disappointed with how it went. I can see a lot of Millwall, so I kind of got my own views on it, and I know I always say it's a real tricky job, tricky managerial job. You guys won't need me to say that. I mean, it was brilliant as a young player to experience it, especially when everyone's on your side, as they were that year when it was such an amazing free-flowing side. But I thought, Joe obviously was going to try and change things and probably needed a bit of time, and I understand that. The necessity to stay in the league is so great that, often it forces change. And I got huge admiration for Neil Harris as well. I mean, the best finisher I ever played with. Great guy. That's the first games I ever played, and he made such a lasting impression on me as a goal scorer. Probably taught me a lot about how to be single-minded and, practice your finishing, go after what you want. I didn't really have that selfishness that you maybe needed as a young kid, but it certainly developed. But yeah, so why I'm rambling is, it was tough for me because I wanted Joe to succeed, but obviously I got a lot of time for Neil and David Livermore. And that Leicester game, if I can talk about that in isolation, yeah, I completely agree with Neil's critique, really. That's one of the best kind of without ball performances I've seen from Millwall for many a year. And of course, you want a bit more going the other way, but I think you've seen that in the last few games. Obafemi's improved, hasn't he? I know Fleming hasn't been at the level of previous seasons, but yeah, the performances have been really good. And yeah, it's been a scary old time, isn't it? So thankfully, you're in the champ again next year.
Sam, there's a player at Millwall I'd like to ask you about, if you've seen enough to comment. But early in the season, our young Romain Esse played quite a few games for the first team. He hasn't managed to play many minutes under Neil, although he has in the last couple of games. He was only 18 when he started playing in the first team. Did you see enough of him to form an opinion on whether he's got a big future?
I wish I was talking to you guys. Well, you know, my allegiance growing up was QPR. Sorry to break that to you, but I'd like to be speaking to you about Eberechi Eze, but you let that one by the nest, didn't you? He's an unbelievable talent. I was at Palace last night, actually. I mean, you know, talk about a player you'd pay to watch. Incredible, you know.
Too much talent for us.
Could be.
Unfortunately.
The Leicester game, came on, didn't he? And I thought George Honeyman had done a really good job just tucking in, you know, being quite narrowed at midfield, because Leicester want that domination in there. So, you know, you talk about what I just did previously about the work without the ball. I thought him and Longman were really intelligent and actually neglected probably quite a lot of what they want to do. Certainly Longman wants to go forward, doesn't he, with his kind of athleticism. Couldn't really do that on that night. So they switched Eze and Longman over, didn't they, when they made the change? But yeah, on the ball, I really like him. I think he's got good awareness. Obviously, you know, carries the team up the pitch, really positive, nice kind of language style. I've really liked him when I've seen him, and surprised that he hasn't had a bit more game time, but it's probably difficult. I know he started the next one, didn't he? And Neil spoke quite fondly of him, but I think, you know, you have to do that other side when you're in this predicament, and maybe this player's better suited to that. But absolutely looks like a talent, and yeah, I haven't seen loads of him, but yeah, looks like you got another good player there.
Sam, we've been asked some questions from what we call the fan in the dugout, questions like that have been put to us to ask you. A bit challenging given your short stay at the Den, I know. So here we go. Who was the player that inspired you most at the Den?
Yeah, I've kind of answered that, haven't I? I'll give you two, because Neil was, given that he'd only been a year out of non-league. I know I was only really young at the time, but he had an incredible assurance about him, you know, belief, confidence, whatever you want to call it. And his finishing was just incredible. I mean, that run then, I remember being up at Stoke. Do you remember that game? I think we lost 3-2, but he knocked in two of the most exquisite goals you've ever seen. Yeah. And it was just a period where he was getting threes, twos, all types of goals. You know, he'd be a threat in the 6-yard box, you know, be brave, but he'd equally be able to wriggle away from people outside the box and smash one in from 30 yards. So, incredible. And, you know, the time scale's a little bit blurry with me, but I kind of always say, and I hope this isn't doing him a disservice or getting a timeline wrong, but I always think with Neil, if it wasn't for his illness, you know, obviously he could have, I know he achieved amazing things at Millwall, but it does baffle me and surprise me a little bit that he never, you know, had a crack at the top division, because I think he was that good, you know, over a period of time. So I would definitely say Neil, just, you know, the quality of the player, but also his attitude and his mentality was incredibly strong. I mean, there was loads of leaders across that team. Obviously, the obvious ones would be Cahill and Lucas Neal and people like that, all brilliant players. But I suppose Stuart Nethercott was a good character, you know, a bit of a throwback. And I remember how vocal he was and how animated he was. So that probably stuck with me as well to a degree. But I could mention so many of them, because you think back now, I mean, I think I was cursed. I never played with a good goalkeeper after Tony Warner. Literally, when I'm asked to name my dream five-a-side, Tony gets in there. And only played 6 games with him because, he was a presence, wasn't he? And you think about what you want from a goalkeeper. You want him coming out and commanding, shoving people out of the way, alleviating the pressure that builds when you're, holding on to a lead or whatever. And he had all those attributes. Big character as well. You think of all those, some of those characters I've just mentioned there. No wonder they were successful. There was some unbelievable characters. I've not even mentioned like Livermore and Cahill and Bircham as well. Blimey.
Yeah. Another question here, Sam. I think you might have even answered this one as well. What was your most memorable game at Millwall? I should imagine that was playing for Oldham, wasn't it?
Yeah, only because Reedy stuck one in the top bin. So again, bittersweet. Bittersweet. I think Neil got a chip as well, didn't he? Did he get a hat trick?
He did. He did, I think.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
I'd go some way to beat the Oxford debut, just because. Obviously, I went on to become a Swindon player and goal scorer, and Oxford's their bitter rivals, so it was kind of bit written in the stars. That one. That was an amazing day. Yeah, I remember it like it was yesterday. Really, I'm a bit odd like that. I remember every goal I ever scored. Some players, some strikers don't recall how many they got or what they looked like. I can recall every goal, what it felt like, what it looked like. So that day was amazing. I think that was one of 2 games that my sister ever attended. So she thought it was the norm to score a couple of goals at your new club. But I remember Mark McGee saying something to me at half time akin to, everyone's told me you're a goal scorer or whatever. And I think I just told him, like, don't worry, I'll get one. And then I think it was Lucas Neal or Christoph Kinnett stuck one on my head, and scored a few at London Road at that end as well. It's always good with a terrace. So that one stands out as well. So yeah, the first 2 probably was the peak.
Excellent. Eamonn again, Sam. The system of play allegedly brought to English football by Pep Guardiola, do you think it will be the standard that football in England will aspire to for the foreseeable future? Or is there something else in the mix?
Well, I think it's changed incredible amount since I was playing. Like I said earlier, you'd never really play by yourself up front. You'd never really play with a 10. You'd have one of the centre forwards that would drop in naturally and do a bit of a job, shield the holding midfield player, but it wouldn't be, such a specialised position. Yeah, I think there's different variations. I think we've seen over the last few years that some teams in the Premier League have kind of gone back to 4-4-2, but quite often it's kind of that narrow midfield 4, almost a 4-2-2-2 when you get the width from the fullbacks. And I think there has to be probably some little alterations if you are going to play the 2-man central midfield and the 2 up top. But I think, at the majority of the levels, you just don't get away with it if you're outnumbered in the midfield. So, yeah, but I think there's still, I commentated on a game, Crystal Palace, good example. Crystal Palace aren't obsessed with playing out from the back. Let me tell you, they want to play with intensity. They want to close the opposition all over the pitch. They want to outscore the opponent, keep attacking. They're playing in the opposition's half all of a sudden. Dean Henderson's got a 6'4" centre forward all of a sudden, and he was clipping the ball up to him. Maybe that. And it's a bit akin to maybe what Jurgen Klopp does. That's kind of the football, I think, the piece de la resistance, isn't it? If you can get the goal threat and you can get the energy. And I think that's maybe what Millwall have been looking for. I think that's the way for you guys or the fans at Millwall. But I don't know if it's achievable to play a style where the goalkeeper is maybe going to tap it out to one of his centre-halves on the 6-yard box, get it back, pop it to the other one. I think, they have to maybe modernise the style and have a bit more possession and have some better footballers in the squad. I think that's always my kind of takeaway when I leave Millwall over the last year or two. Like, I've obviously been in some brilliant games. I think Gary Rowett was really good for periods, but I always leave and think, if they are going to get to the next level or you're going to get more, what's the phrase, bang for your buck, you have to get better players. You have to get better centre-halves who can handle the ball. You're going to have to get better central midfield players. You're going to have to get a bit more creativity. Probably going to have to allow the wide players to have a little bit more freedom. And that all takes time. That takes a few windows. And it takes people having a bit of patience, but having that right balance between it being a bit more modern, but also having the passion and the intensity and the goal threat. I think
we need to update the technical skills department You
get all those
getting
things.
those people in.
And it's not easy.
No.
It's not easy. And I wouldn't say for 1 minute, because I really like him and he's a really obviously talented and well-respected young coach. But I think Joe probably wanted to play too much football, and there has to probably be a balance. And it may have come in time. But I think that's always the $1 million question with Millwall. Are they ever going to be able to achieve those things? Are they going to ever be able to get to that where everyone's aligned and the fans are happy as well? Because we live in an age now where it's not Millwall, it's everywhere. Like Neil was a genius, wasn't he? A few weeks ago, then he was an idiot, then he was a genius, then he was an idiot. When I used to go to watch QPR, you used to walk to the car after the game with my dad, and we used to say the ref was rubbish, he's rubbish, we're never going again. And then you shut up about it for the following 7 days, and then you're back there. But now it's
no social media platform.
Yeah, now it's just round the clock. Managers just don't get time, which is, and that's just where we are. What can we do about it? That's just where we are. But I suppose I try and be a bit, kind of balanced about it. Sorry, that was a bit of a tangent there. That's my.
Don't mind tangents. They're okay.
Yeah.
Do them. Thanks, Sam.
No worries.
Sam, you've been a great guest to have on the show. Thank you very much for joining us. Talking about your memories and your wider football thoughts. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. But before you leave us, it's tradition on the show. Can you give a prediction for Millwall versus Plymouth on Saturday?
I do a championship podcast on a Wednesday, and you know what? I tipped Plymouth to win. And the only reason being...
How could you?
I just think it's been a brilliant few weeks, hasn't it? Like, the pressure's off. And I'm not saying that Neil's not an outstanding motivator, but I think there might be a bit more motivation in that away dressing room at the weekend. And would you stomach a little off day at this stage, or has it got to be foot on the gas and a few more wins?
It'd be nice to end the season at home with a win.
Yeah, I get that. But the bigger picture and the bigger story is that there's been some colossal performances the last few weeks which have got the job done. You could be Sheffield Wednesday or Huddersfield, still very much Birmingham, QPR, Stoke, still very much in the mix. So I'll leave it there, shall I, before I offend you further?
I think we should edit that bit out.
Yeah. Hey, I know that'll have to come back soon, so that takes a strong man to do that.
I think you are the first guest ever to tip a win for the opposition. For a prediction for a home game.
Yeah, but you're safe. It's over. That's fine.
Made you safe.
Mitigating circumstances.
You'll have to watch out for Ted again, won't you?
I'll give you the 1-1.
Keep on, lads. He's coming round.
Yeah.
Give him another 5 minutes. We're going to win 5.
Well, we hope you come back and join us again soon. And hopefully, the next time you come on, you'll give us a Millwall win. But
I will next season. Yeah, I will next season. Yeah. I'm just like I just like building those narratives in my mind. I did say Plymouth were going to get relegated about a month ago, and I think they probably would have done under the previous chat. But I was down there for their win over Leicester. Obviously, 2 or 3 days after the Millwall victory. There's so many similarities. Brilliant off the ball. Crowd would bang on it. Yeah, I suppose there are similarities because it's passionate little fan base down there. Well, I'd say little passionate fans down there because there's no other club until you get up to Exeter. So they do get behind them. So you both did a great job over Leicester, who look like they're going to win the league.
Yeah. Well, Sam, thank you again.
No problem, Miles. My pleasure.
I'll see you in the press bit a bit soon again.
Yeah, pleasure, guys. Good to speak to you.
Thanks a lot, Sam.
Cheers, thank
All
you.
best.
Cheers, Sam.
Cheers, Sam.
We'll take a break there and hear about Harvey's Den Cafe with Eamonn and Ellie.
Hi, Ellie. Lovely to see you here up in Harvey's Den again. And, of course, you've taken over from the Brown family. Cafe that they have here is just wonderful. Millwall shirts on the chairs, blue and white tablecloths, blue chairs, and all you guys in Millwall kit.
Of course.
Tell me, what goes on? When are you here? What can we expect?
We're here Monday to Friday from 10:30 till 5 every day, open to the public. Everyone's welcome. We're open every match day from 11:30 till 2:30. We've got a new family, a new little CAF team, and the girls up here are all lovely and friendly.
So who are the girls that are up here?
We've got myself, Ellie, of course, and then we've got Nicole, who works during the week. We've got Michelle, who also works during the week. She's lovely. And Lena, who works on a match day. And my mum, Ellen, who's very well known.
Very well known.
She also helps out in here from time to time. So we've got a lovely little family team.
To look after the community. Exactly. Wonderful stuff. So what's on offer at the cafe these days?
We've got everything from chicken burgers to paninis to full breakfasts, tea, coffee, hot chocolate, soft drinks, snacks, everything you could need.
So it's all here, all available, a great team to serve it up to you. Well, what else can I say but carry on in Harvey's style here at Harvey's Den Cafe, and all the best to you, Ellie, and your team, and I look forward to coming up and enjoying some of the fare in not the far distant future. Well, in fact, I've already done that. The coffee is just superb. Thanks, Ellie.
Thanks, Eamon.
I'm your host, Myles Thornton, and with me I have the NOLUT talking team of Jeff Burnige, Ted Robinson and Eamonn Barclay. Monday to Friday and match days, get down and say hello to the team at Harvey's Den Cafe. Now then, let's hear from Ellis Barr. Keep us updated, Ellis.
Hello, Ellis here, and I'm glad to be back talking about Millwall. I know many have watched my videos, so you will all know that I don't wear splints as much anymore. Thanks for your support along the way. It is now time to hear what all the Millwall teams are up to. Come on, Millwall!
First up, let's hear from Paul Loding talking about the Millwall Romans and Pride. It's a hectic weekend for the Romans with 2 games in 2 days.
Hi, it's Paul Loding at the Millwall Romans with a quick update for the week. Busy weekend for both teams, with the Romans playing last Saturday against Charlton in the GFSN Cup, the long-awaited fixture. Unfortunately, the day just didn't go our way. Playing on grass didn't really suit us in the first half. We felt like the referee was slightly against us, with 2 goals being disallowed. Going into half-time, 2-0 down. It just didn't flow for us very well. We did come back out in the second half, played a lot better, managed to grab it back to 2-2 at full time, with the game then going straight to penalties. But unfortunately, again, some good penalties from Charlton. We lost 5-4 on penalties. So a bit of a devastating day on the Saturday, but we move on. Moving over to Sunday, and both teams in action, with Romans playing at home for the late kick-off at 3:30 due to the London Marathon outside St Paul's Sports Ground against Stonewall. Stonewall, who we'd played a couple of weeks previous in the LUL Cup. A lot better than when we started, playing in our 4-3-3. Really sort of had some really good movement on and off the ball. It just seemed to flow very well for us. Some cracking goals, and we ended up winning 5-0 overall. Pride took the journey down to play Charlton Addicts, who play in the same division as them, and really fought hard and managed to come away with a point. It was a 1-1 draw. So looking ahead this weekend, Romans are on a break before pretty much back-to-back to the end of May. Pride are at home. They're playing against East End Phoenix in the LUL Cup Shield competition. 4:00 kickoff, say down at St Paul's. That'll be a real feisty game. That'll be a good one to watch. And then looking ahead for the Romans, we play in the London Unity League Cup competition semi-final against Charlton on the 5th of May. Unfortunately, away down at their ground again. We're obviously up for revenge. That'll be the 5th of May against Charlton. And then just looking ahead a little bit further, we're very fortunate, very lucky, and a big thanks to Sean and the Community Trust for inviting us for a game at the Den on the 8th of May. We've invited Stokey FC to come and play the fixture there. That's on the 8th of May. So big thanks to Sean and the team there for inviting us down for that game. That'll be a 6:00 kickoff on the Wednesday. Really looking forward to that one. That'll be a good fixture. And obviously a big shout out to the guys, the Millwall team, for keeping up in the Championship this year. I know there were a few hairy moments, particularly mid-season, but well done to the guys there for battling hard, and to Neil there, who's come in and done a superb job in doing what needed to be done to ensure they stayed up. But this weekend, I think I'm going to say that we're going to be comfortable now, and I'm going to say it's a Millwall 3-0 victory.
Well, that's different to Sam Parkin's one. Any thoughts, Ted and Eamonn?
Oh, well, straight one fault. Charlton, cup tie, beat them. There you go. They don't very often, and they've nicked a penalty shootout against us, and they can have that because we're going to beat them in the next one.
The plate game that the Pride team have got coming up, I don't know why he said it was a shield or something. I can't remember what he said, but it's a plate game, and that applies to the second division of the LUL. So I'm hopeful that they'll get some where to put in the cabinet. Down in the Lions Centre, of course. That'll look lovely. So let's be hopeful.
We can do. I accompanied Jeff Burnige down to St Paul Sports Ground on Tuesday evening, and he reported for Maritime Radio following the Lionesses' midweek hosting of Enfield Ladies.
Mistake on Maritime Radio. So Millwall Lionesses hosted Enfield Ladies at Rotherhithe on Tuesday evening. It was the first meeting of these two sides this season, and the reverse fixture will be played in early May. Jeff Burnige was there to pick up the story for Maritime Radio.
Millwall Lionesses enjoyed a second successive victory when they defeated Enfield Town Ladies 3-0 under the floodlights at St Paul Sports Ground Rotherhithe on Tuesday evening. Targeting a top half finish in the London and South East Regional League, co-managers Alex Russell and Adam Rowland continued with their policy of turning to the club's successful under-18 team with a view to next season. One 16-year-old defender, Billy Burgess, started for a third successive match, and another, winger Jess Edwards, was selected to lead the attack for her first start. She had one shot cleared off the line before Maisie Garwood opened the scoring on 42 minutes. The defensive unit of the Lionesses looked impregnable, with the experienced Sophie Chapman and Poppy Payne outstanding. On the hour, Millwall rotated their midfield, replacing Garwood and Grace Seeley with Chloe Francis and another 16-year-old in Daniela de Menezes. Defender Chapman doubled the lead shortly afterwards from a cross by Shannon Drew. Immediately then, Russell and Rowland chose to rotate in the back four also, with youngsters Shay Bennett and Melissa Jones replacing fellow youngster Billy Burgess and Emel Hussein. Bennett's exquisite through ball for Jess Edwards saw her run onto it and score a beautifully composed third goal. The Lionesses now move forward to their exciting match this Sunday at the Den. They entertain informed Fulham with a 6 p.m. kick-off. There will be more details on Saturday's Rock and Gold show with Tim Courtnell.
Thanks, Jeff. We're looking forward to an exciting Saturday then, and early evening kick-off at the Den ahead. Why not get along, watch the Lionesses entertain Fulham, and don't forget to listen to Tim Courtnell on Saturday to hear the preview for Sunday's game. Back to your music now.
Anything to add to that, Jeff?
Not really. I think it's interesting for listeners to hear how Maritime cover it, how they introduce my report and then say something afterwards. But I would encourage everyone to come along to that game. We don't get many Lionesses games at the Den. It's a 6 o'clock against very informed Fulham. It's a very, very tough test for our young side against a very experienced Fulham. I believe it's £5 to get in, £3 concessions, under 16s free, talking from memory. I'd love to see a few people down there. So this Sunday, 6 p.m.
It's £5 for adults and £1 for under 16s. Yeah, 6 points left for us to gain against Plymouth and Swansea. On Saturday, we face Argyle at the Den. Cairo Evans quoted Neil Harris in the Southwark News this week about the games ahead. I said after the Sunderland match that we're not going to be ripping up the game plan and starting again because we're safe. I've got due care and attention to the players, to the fan base and to the football club to make sure we're competitive in both games, Harris said. Yes, there might be an opportunity for me to change a couple of things or impact different players off the bench because I need to be clear on players going into next season, and I certainly have an eye on one next season. Well, we are not going to sit back on our laurels. Plymouth are desperate for points and can still escape the drop. They face Hull in their final game. They've won 2, drawn 1 and lost 2 in their final 5, and we're unbeaten in 3. The odds are drifting for a Millwall win, from odds on to evens. A draw is 5-2, and a win for Plymouth is also 5-2. How do we see this one going, and what's the score prediction you'll make? Jeff, we'll start with you.
I disagree with Sam. I respect his opinion because clearly he's unbiased, although you could tell that he does have some affection for the club from what he said in the earlier interview. I'm pretty convinced we are going to win the game. I don't think it's in Neil's nature or in the nature of the team he's produced for them to relax for that game. Plymouth have got threats up front and they're likely to score, I think. But no, I think it's a Millwall win. Difficult to know the score. I'll have a go at 2-1.
Fantastic. Eamonn?
Well, that's interesting that you mentioned the term 2-1 because I think the odds in some places have crept down for the draw and the win for Plymouth to 2-1 while we're still floating around on an evens pitch. But bookmakers do those sort of things to get more cash over the counter. So I'm not going to lay in a ditch with that and say it's going to be tough. But I think it will be a bit tough. As Sam said, this team that we're facing are in the situation that we were in until last Saturday. Well, I do, though, believe that there's the energy in our side to give us a win. And I think it's going to be a narrow one. And I think it's going to be another 1-0.
Ted?
I've got a really good feeling about this game. I've got a feeling that all the tension that's been in the football club over the last few weeks, and it has been in the players as well to some extent, is going to come out and we'll be more relaxed. And I think we might even play a bit more flowing football. I think it suits us that Plymouth have got something to play for because they desperately need a win. And that means they might come at us. They have got players that can hurt you. Morgan Whittaker's a very good player. So, yeah, we're going to have to be on our mettle, but I'm sure we are. I'm sure we're going to be on it. And I actually fancy the team want to be celebrating with us at the end, sending us off with hopefully what we might see a bit more of next year. And I'm that confident I'm going to go for a 3-0 win.
Wow. 2 3-0 wins, I think, predicted.
I am a ball loading sycophant. I've heard it all now.
I just think, there's 1 or 2 players coming back in Tom Bradshaw and Kevin Nisbet and Imaku. Maybe we might see something of them, but I just think we might see a more relaxed Millwall than we've seen recently in their football, that is, but they still have the intensity in the game. I just think we're going to have a good time on Saturday.
Yeah, I hope we're going to have a good time on Saturday as well. I'm not going to go over a loss like Sam did, but I am going to go over 1-0 win. I just think it will be a tough game because obviously, as you said, Eamonn, as well, Plymouth will just want to stay up, So they're going to put up a good fight, and rightly so, but I reckon we'll nick it 1-0. We'll take a break there and hear about the Lions Food Hub from my mate, Harvey Brown.
Hi, Harvey Brown here. I am proud of the Lions Food Hub, which is jointly owned by Kelly and Ellen Webster, and they have been supporting families within our community for over 2 years on Millwall match days. If you would like to donate to them, they have a match day donation hub at the SE16 bar at Coldblow Lane, end of the ground, where they accept any food or money and toiletry donations. If you can help, any donations will be received with thanks.
I'm your host, Myles Thornton, and with me I have the NOLUT talking team of Jeff Burnige, Ted Robinson and Eamonn Barclay. Kelly and Ellen Webster have said they are particularly short of pasta, rice, tinned vegetables, tinned meat and fish, curry and pasta sauces, any cereals, washing detergent, shampoo or shower gel and sanitary products. They will gratefully accept all products or financial donations. Let's hear from Phil Coleman's boot room now.
Hi everyone, here's a few more stories from the boot room. Clubs these days have got their own training grounds and in some cases state of the art with swimming pools and hydrotherapy. Back in my day, we had a range of training grounds. We were basically all over the place. Normally start off at the Den, load the skips full of kit and boots, and we trundle off to either Peak Freens or Langley Park near Beckerman. We'd train, we'd clear up, load the skips and go back to the Den for lunch. We'd often do extra training, weights, but we'd always finish with those horrible jobs around the ground. We had other training grounds, or I'd probably call them places to train. It wasn't our own place. It included the old ground track over the back of the ground, Senegal Fields, Deptford Park, Southwark Park, Greenwich Park, and those dreaded hill runs. And quite often, we'd run to Lewisham Leisure Centre, train in the sports hall, and run back. Some of the lads run up to New Cross, and some of the lads took the lower road through Deptford. When we got back to the ground, we'd run up and down the terraces, or we'd even train on the pitch at the Den, depending on how the weather was and what the groundsman was like. Pre-season training was quite often in my time at Richardson Evans Sports Ground, which is on the A3 near Richmond. But one summer in my second spell, we trained at Avery Hill Park. We also trained from 86, 88 at Dartford College. That was better for me because I was driving in from Colchester. My day entailed meeting up at Brentwood Services with my mate Banana Man, Jimmy Carter. And Jimmy Carter, okay, so true story this is. The doc said to Jimmy Carter, you need to put on a bit of weight to be a little bit stronger. So I'd get to Brentwood and Jimmy'd get in my car and he'd have a plate of bananas on toast. And that was his breakfast. We'd go in, we'd train at Dartford College, we'd get in the car again and Jimmy would have bananas for lunch on the way home. Although, to be honest with you, a lot of the squad, including myself, we used to stop off at the old caravan in a lay-by on the A2 and we'd all pile in there for a fry-up and a cup of tea. Imagine professional football clubs now, they've not got a training ground and the players are going into a caravan on a lay-by on the motorway for a fry-up. Couldn't imagine that nowadays. But then training was great. It was always varied, although sometimes it was brutal. We had some pre-season training in Richmond Park, some big hills in there, Wimbledon Common through the trees, hill runs, as I mentioned, up at Greenwich Park. And we also did bog standard training like shuttle runs, up, back, over different distances. And one coach, Terry Long, he introduced what was called football running. It was basically anywhere between 50 metres. It was forwards, it was back, it was down for a sit-up, it was up for a header, it was down for a press-up, it was sprint 50, jog 50, walk 50. And this went on for about 90 seconds and you were absolutely shattered at the end of it. But we always carried on. We enjoyed training. In particular, we loved the small-sided games normally at the end of training. They were damn competitive and the tackles were flying in all over the place. And quite often the tackles were well over the top and quite dangerous, but we got on with it. The one thing that some of us didn't like was setting up for set pieces. Not a favourite. If you were in the starting team, you were fine. If you were in the opposition, you were often a five-man wall or you were standing still to make sure that the corners and the free kicks succeeded. I think that's where they named the reserve team the Stiffs, because we always stood around waiting for that set piece to be successful. One training session stands out in my mind. We had the pleasure of double Olympic champion and world champion decathlete Daley Thompson turn up with his coach, Snubby White. He took the session, but what he did, he brought with him a giant beer barrel. It was full of wet sand, and he just had a rope. And we tied the rope around the beer barrel, tied it around our waist, and we had to run as fast as we could, dragging this ton of weight behind us. So Daley Thompson was ahead of his time with that one, creating power. We were lucky. We had some really good coaches. It was varied with different training grounds every day, different training every day, and we absolutely loved it. More from the Tales of the Boot Room next time.
Thanks for that, Phil, and can't wait to hear your next one. We're all looking forward to the next game, but in the meantime, here are a few matters of interest for Millwall fans and those interested in football.
Stan went along to the Millwall History and Heritage Tour on that great day, the 23rd of March, which was also marked with Miles's 18th birthday. What a day in all that was to remember, wasn't it, Jeff? Anyway, let's hear what Stan has to say.
I went along to the Millwall History and Heritage Tour. Now, some of you will be familiar with this. It's advertised and it's about doing the tour around the Isle of Dogs and learning all about what Millwall was about and going to the various sites. My experience was the tour, which was done by Rob and Michael, who lead the thing, done very well. I think the tour was very good. And they're planning to do another one again in September where Phil Coleman is going to be in attendance. And you will see it advertised in the normal way. And the tickets are £12. And I have to say that is, in my opinion, good value. And everybody on the tour, they all rated the tour. So I would recommend anyone, when this comes up, to put their name forward to go on the tour, because you'll enjoy it. You've got a lot of walking to do, but it's very good.
Well, maybe they might have a venture into obtaining some electric scooters for hire for those that haven't got the legs that you've got, Stan. Anyway, their next trip is already advertised for Saturday, 7th of September. As you heard, Phil Coleman is their featured guest, and he looks forward to meeting all who join the trip. You can find further details and book by going to Eventbrite, and that's EVENTBRITE, eventbrite.co.uk, and search for Millwall History and Heritage. I'll say that again. You can find further details and book by going to Eventbrite, that's EVENTBRITE.co.uk, and search for Millwall History and Heritage. You'll be sure to enjoy yourself with a ticket that is priced at £12.
Our Millwall Fans Show will be back on Friday with Gary. He will host Dave, Steve and Ted will be back. Once again with the Norwich Damager, Carl Bates, and the Millwall Community Trust Supremo, Sean Daly. Also, can I mention Millwall Lionesses are back in action this Sunday when they host Fulham Ladies, who are really in form, and this will be at the Den for a 6 o'clock kickoff. Why not arrange to get along and give the Lionesses the support that they deserve? It's 6 o'clock, as I say, and it's, I believe, £5 for adults, £1 for under 16s. There is a concession, I think, for those normal concessions. For example, me, old age pensioners.
You poor old thing. Never mind. There you go. Well, I've booked mine. Have you booked yours? Millwall Football Club's 2023-24 end of season awards night will take place at the Den on Tuesday, 30th of April from 6 p.m. till late, and there are a few spots available. With a host of trophies up for grabs, the night will see the first team squad and coaching staff in attendance as a drinks reception is followed by a three-course meal and the awards presentation and much more. TV's Mark Clement will host the night with live entertainment on offer by the way of a pianist and a band. Throughout, as winners are categorised such as Player of the Season and Goal of the Season are announced. A table of 8 people with 2 players is priced at £900 plus VAT, which is £1,080 inclusive of VAT. If you have a group smaller than 8, please get in touch with the club and the club will accommodate you as best as possible. Individual tickets are priced at £100 plus VAT, which is £120 including VAT, without a player on your table. Allocated on a first-come, first-served basis. As it is short notice, contact commercial team via telephone on 0207 740 0501. I'll repeat that. That telephone number is 0207 740 0501.
Don't forget you'll be able to listen to the No One Likes Us Talking team, bring reports from our games, both home and away, for the Lions, Lionesses, Romans and Pride, and also updates on Millwall Community Matters too, broadcasting on Maritime Radio on 96.5 FM. Additionally, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and X, formerly Twitter, social media sites, and all popular podcast sites. Thanks, Jeff.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks, Ted.
Cheers, Myles.
And thanks, Eamonn.
Thanks, Myles, and the listeners too.
Yep, and thank you all for listening. Finally, let's not forget to keep it safe on the streets out there. Good night.
Our Millwall Fan Show is sponsored by G&M Motors of Gravesend, Honda dealers and much more. Thank you.